Hello and a very good evening to everybody who's joined us. I am Pratiksha Gupta. I am the founder and CEO of One Special Place. Actually, originally we were supposed to go live with our very special guest, who's Gopika Kapoor. We were supposed to go on a live on Instagram, but we ran into some technical glitches. But here we are on Facebook. Welcome, Gopika. I cordially invite you and welcome you to today's live with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And
Thanks
I
for.
think technical glitches seem to be the
I
flavor of the week. I've had them myself, so yes, very happy to be here finally.
Thank you so much for joining. And so, it is the Autism Acceptance Month, and
Yes,
what better than talking about how autism has changed our lives and how it inspires us to push ourselves to reach those milestones which initially we can't even think of. So,
absolutely.
Gopika, I would like if you can. Tell a little bit about your journey, how it all started with your son, Veer. I think his name is Veer.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
let us start with how it all began, and uh, the stage
Sure.
is yours. Yeah.
So, so I didn't know anything about autism. I knew vaguely what would be a layperson's knowledge I had of it. I knew it was some sort of condition. I didn't know how it impacted people. I didn't know how it impacted families, children, nothing. When my twins were born, right from the start, I think we knew that there was something different about Veer. This was something which people started pointing out as early as 5 months, because when you called his name, kept saying Veer, 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 he would not respond immediately. He also preferred to be on his own, preferred his own company. My daughter Gayatri was very bubbly, very friendly, would mix with a lot of other kids. Veer would sit by himself and play by himself, either in the sand or else in the grass. And we figured that was just his personality, and we let him be. It was not something which I was very concerned about. Around the time that just before he turned 3 is when Tare Zameen Par came out, and there was a lot of articles on dyslexia. And while I was reading those articles, I realized that there was a lot of similarity between what I was reading about and what Veer was like. And so I decided to fix up an appointment, and we got an appointment to see a developmental pediatrician, Dr. Vibha Krishnamurthy, at Umeed Child Development Center. And it was she who confirmed an autism diagnosis. So, of course, that was the start of our journey when he was 3 years old. After that, from knowing practically nothing about autism, I would, you know, re- scour the internet every day, would go research, find out things, read books, all sorts of things, and just to find out more about the condition. And then when Veer and Gayatri were about 5.5, I decided to start working with Umeed because I felt very acutely that I came from a place of privilege, and I realized that I had it very easy in terms of being able to afford therapy, being able to afford the best kind of medical care, being able to afford to not have to work while also doing therapy with Veer. And I realized that I was extremely lucky, and so I wanted to do something to be able to help, to give back. I came from an NGO background, and so I started to work with Umeed. Started out working in fundraising, but I realized when the therapists were working, that a lot of what they did was what I did with Veer. And so I asked to train at Umeed and work as a therapist. So that started an amazing journey of so much learning. I hoped that I would be able to use what I learned at Umeed with Veer, and I did. But I also learned so much more from all the children and families I worked with. I worked at Umeed for almost 10 years, and during that time, I think it also helped increase my own acceptance for him. So, just to give you an example, when I started out at Umeed, I would not tell any of the families that I worked with that I myself have a child who's on the spectrum. By the end of it, when I left Umeed, it was to write my book Beyond the Blue. which kind of chronicles our family's journey with autism. So it was my own internal growth as well, which kind of came about during these 10 years. And like I had said, when Veer was first diagnosed, I would look for any sort of reading material, anything to just find out more about autism. And that's really what prompted me to write Beyond the Blue, my book, because there was nothing in the Indian context. There was absolutely nothing written by an Indian parent. And I felt that this was something which needed to happen. And so that is why I decided to do that. And so it came out in November last year. And I am also doing a lot to kind of really spread the word about autism, to raise awareness. As you yourself said, this is World Autism Awareness Month. What tends to happen is that during the month of April, it's autism is suddenly highlighted, and then for the
Yeah,
rest of
and
the
then
year,
it's
it's kind of
forgotten.
forgotten.
Yes.
And whereas actually, I mean, figures say that there are over 3 million people in our country who have autism, and it's
Yes.
something which needs to start becoming part of a conversation. And so I have launched Beyond the Blue Chats, which is a weekly chat, which was happening on Instagram Live until technical glitches forced me to move it to a recorded version as well. And so, what I do is every week I discuss different aspects of the spectrum with somebody, and just try to kind of just have a conversation, keep a conversation going on
Yeah.
the condition and just different aspects of it.
Yeah. No, I'm sure, it was a very heart moving journey that you just described, and you summed it up so beautifully. That's amazing. So,
Thank you.
and you just sort of hit the nail at the right spot, saying that Autism Month means you talk about autism, you do campaigns, you do so many things, but then it is
Yeah,
forgotten. So,
absolutely.
yes, so I think I sort of resonate with that idea, and we should be doing more such events and campaigns so that the journey behind autism is not forgotten. And recently,
Yes.
we strongly believe that now we are in that scenario where we are moving from awareness to acceptance. And I think
Yes.
your book also highlights a lot of this fact that it needs to be embraced with all its diversity and all its difference. So
Yeah.
thank you for coming out with your book. I'm sure there will be lots of readers and people who will learn so much because of your contribution.
I
So
hope so. I hope so.
yeah, absolutely. So, Gopika, so you spoke about how difficult it was in the beginning. Can we quickly talk about the role of the professionals involved in the journey from the beginning? So, like we can talk about a developmental pediatrician
Sure.
and the therapists. So, as a mom and as a professional yourself now, can you share some anecdote about any professionals that you have worked with and those who helped you?
Sure. It's very because I met some amazing professionals. Right. Dr. Krishnamurthy, who diagnosed is our developmental pediatrician. She was absolutely amazing because she could see that. I remember the day she gave us the diagnosis. I remember still, but I don't remember anything else about it. I was completely shell shocked, as was my husband. Um, and so what happened was that when we received the diagnosis, uh, we we could not absorb any information. So she called us back when we were a week later, so that we were able to really absorb what this implications this had for our life. Because again, I was just talking to somebody today, and I was just telling them that the condition of autism, any developmental disability, but the condition of autism is one which impacts every aspect of a family. So it impacts not only the child. Sometimes the child themselves are not so impacted by the condition, because they don't know. This is the way they've been. right? But the people around them are so impacted. The parents, the grandparents, the siblings, neighbors, friends, everybody is impacted by this. And so we had really amazing guidance from Vibha, who helped us kind of navigate the initial years. We had fabulous superb occupational therapy, Chola Badyani, who went above and beyond, and really helped work with Veer. And we did have some cases where we had therapists who were not so great, but I think that was a learning as well. We had therapists who told us that it's your fault that his anxiety has gone up, and made me feel so anxious that I thought that I should seek therapy myself because my anxiety was at an all-time high. I think I'm really grateful to these people, because when I became a therapist, it taught me what not to do. So anytime, even if there was a situation with a child which was alarming me, and where I could see that there was a decline in the skills of the child, or I could see that this child was acting in ways that maybe they hadn't acted in the last visit, and I thought that there was something up with this child, I remembered my own experiences, and I remembered that increasing the parents' anxiety is not going to do anybody any favors. So again, the way as a professional you deal with parents, the way you interact with parents is so important, because you need to build that rapport, and at the same time you need to make them aware that they are the experts and that you are on their side. You are playing the supporting part, but they are the experts on their child. And when you give the parent that confidence that they are the expert on their child, the amount of empowerment that they feel is incredible, because they feel that, okay, fine, we are in a position, we know best, and we know how to work with our child, and that is really what leads to progress. So lot of learnings which really intersected as a parent and later on as a professional. So I think my experiences as a parent helped me as a professional, and when I worked as a professional, the fact that I was a parent helped me to empathize and really put myself in the shoes of the parents I worked with.
Yeah, I mean, very rightly said. Empathy is something, a sort of a cornerstone quality that I think all professionals should have. And we read it in books, but I'm sure once you experience it, and I'm sure, being a mom and a therapist, you've had your learning in that sphere also. So that's wonderful. So, Gopika, I meet a lot of new parents, who have small kids,
Yes.
toddlers, who are, maybe we are not sure of the diagnosis. They are still 2.5, and delayed in language milestones, social milestones are not up to the mark, and we feel that they are tending towards the autism spectrum. What will your advice be to those new parents? It's so hard to break the news. It's so hard to tell
It
them,
is.
because the whole life is ahead of the child, and
Yes.
childhood is magical. You give the right inputs at the right time, and you see a world of difference ahead. So how did you cope with that, and what is your advice to those new parents who don't even know what's going to come ahead in their life?
Yeah. I think as a parent of especially if it's your first child, I think you it's very easy to deny that there's anything that is different about your child. I think it's something that a lot of parents have dealt with. I have dealt with it myself. For so long, I denied that there was anything that was different about Veer, different from Gayatri. Um, and when we diagnosed him, I think it was at the right time, because we were able to capitalize on it. And suddenly, within a month, once we started therapy, we started working with him, it was like seeing a change. I remember his school saying, "What have you done?" Because suddenly it was like this child emerged from his shell. But that was because of that concentrated therapy. So I think for parents who even suspect, if they stay up at night wondering, why is my child being different from the other kids in the playground, why is my child not making eye contact, why is my child not speaking as much as their siblings or as their cousins or friends, please put your denial aside. go to a developmental pediatrician. Again, I would say developmental pediatrician here simply because they are the ones who are in a position to make a diagnosis, and they would know exactly what it is that is impacting your child. So please go see a developmental pediatrician and start therapy immediately. You do not have to have a label. You can, so very often to me, the developmental pediatricians for the really little kids would say at risk for, at risk for ADHD, at risk for autism. So again, even when they're in that at risk stage, it doesn't mean that you can't start therapy. It doesn't mean you can't start working with this child. The child's brain needs to be stimulated even at that point of time, and the work needs to start. And as I'm sure you must be knowing this, that 80% of the brain's growth happens between 3 and 5 years of age. And that is when the brain is, it's like a sponge, it's ready to absorb everything. And I have seen the case when I remember there was this one child who came to us when he was about 18 or 19 months old, and we started work with him. And he, because he was so little, the policy used to be that we used to see children once a week. But both these parents were so invested; they used to take time off work, come with this child, bring him, and he used to come in twice a week. So we made exceptions for him because he was so little. By this time, this kid was 2.5, 3. He was speaking full sentences. He had amazing engagement, amazing reciprocity. He was unbelievable. And he started out not speaking at 19, 18 or 19 months of age. He would not say a word. He would not make a sound. And to have him speaking full sentences, engage in games with pretend play, it was like a miracle. But the fact is, it wasn't a miracle. It was just solid, hard work by the parents, by the therapists who put in those hours to really work with this child. And it made such a difference. So seeing kids like this, I realize how important it is to intervene early. And the faster that we intervene, the definitely there are more chances of gains to be made, definitely chances of progress. So parents who feel that even there is something which is different, please go to see a developmental pediatrician. At the most, they'll tell you, no, it's nothing, just leave it, it's all right, you don't have to do anything. But go see a developmental pediatrician, because if there is a chance that there is something which is different about your child, you can start working immediately. And that's really important.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with you. The early we start, the better it is. It is all the neuroplasticity of the
Yes,
brain. And research has proved it. Moms like you, therapists like you have sort of gone through the same thing. So if there are any new parents who are watching this, please don't wait. I know it's hard to
it
accept, and
is. It's
there's a
very
lot of
hard. It's very,
taboo.
very hard.
There's a lot of taboo in India where I know of India. I know of countries outside also. It's not as much of a socially condemned thing as much
Yeah,
as it is in India. So I think we are still a little far from people accepting, the neighbors and the aunties and the uncles and the extended families, and the the social stigma behind the fact that your child is going for some therapy or some.
absolutely.
I don't know when we will be able to shatter those barriers, those sad points, but I know it requires a lot of courage to really embrace
It's
the
sad
fact.
because we are a country who is still so steeped. We are so steeped in superstition. We In a lot of cases, I have seen that the in-laws especially will blame the mom कि तुमने कुछ किया होगा pregnancy में. It's because of you that this is the case. And this is across classes, across religions, across castes, where the mother is blamed very often for her child's condition. Superstition plays a huge part. I remember we had this one parent who had come to us and said that we made the child drink tote ka pani, the water drunk by a parrot, because parrots speak a lot. And when the child drinks the water that has been drunk by a parrot, the child will also start to speak. So there are I mean, on the one hand, you have breakthrough medical interventions and technologies, and on the other hand, you have this. So we really are in a country which, still believes in a lot of this, and that is why. Thank you for doing chats like this, so that people really come to know that it is really only intervention that works, and
Absolutely.
not things like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So even I knew of a family very close to me, because when you are dealing with children, you really
Right.
become their extended
Yes.
family. So I
Yes.
know of a family where these were two kids, and the elder one was on the spectrum, and the grandmother would not give prasad to the elder one, but would give to the younger one.
Right. Younger one.
So
Yes, I know, it's very sad.
it's heartbreaking, and
It's
it's
very
it's a
heartbreaking.
it's really sad that such things are prevalent in our country. So
Very true.
talking about this, I would like to touch one more very important topic. What is your view on the medication or the diets, and the MB12 injections and the GFCF, all those? So have you tried them? Has there been a success? Or if you know of
Yes,
people?
so I tried everything. As I've written in my book, I tried everything. I tried GFCF diets, I tried past life regression therapy, I tried vitamins, I tried faith healing, I tried everything, because I think initially, when you don't know, you want to fix your child. You just, I think it's part of the stages of that lead towards acceptance. And I did try GFCF, and it was kind of it made absolutely no difference to my son. I know that it works. There is anecdotal evidence, there is no concrete evidence which says that it's worked, and I have known enough friends whose kids have really benefited from it. And so why not let them? It's something, if they can follow, it's fine. It did not work with my child. There's a lot of stuff out there. There is hyperbaric oxygen kind of chambers. There is stem cell, which I think is very dangerous, because I've had families whom, when I worked, low income families, who would say, we're putting our house we're kind of mortgaging our house. We are selling off the mother's Mangal Sutra to pay for stem cell therapy. And we would have to sit them down and tell them, please do not do this, because there is no concrete proof. It is not something which has been, which is not evidence based. And so we do not follow this at Umeed. And so please do not do this. So there are enough people who are quacks out there who will take families for a ride, and unfortunately parents are so eager to fix this, that until they reach that stage where they realize that autism is something which is a lifelong condition, and that's something that they're going to have to live with, that they will kind of go along, with all this. Again, following evidence-based practices, like I said, with diets, it's something which is, I have learned of anecdotal information where and experiences where these things have worked. As far as medication goes, I would say that unless, firstly, I'd say only a psychiatrist or a developmental pediatrician can prescribe medication. Uh, Therapists cannot prescribe medication. Secondly, I would say that in a lot of cases, when would parents come for medication? Parents would come when there is a behavior which they cannot control. Okay, in most cases, where maybe the child is being very aggressive, is being very hyperactive. I have seen in a lot of cases that just by behavior modification therapy, where you have certain structures set in place. We know that children on the spectrum thrive on structure. So when you have a structure in place, when you put in place a visual schedule, when you put in place certain systems where the child will follow through, and because children thrive on structure, they will follow through. When these are put in place, actually there's no need for medication. Of course, it's easier to just prescribe the medication, but then again, that's doing a lot of things to the body. And ultimately, these are children, So with all these chemical changes taking place, you don't know what sort of side effects they're going to be. And so unless it is absolutely essential, unless you have tried the behavior therapy, therapy, you've tried years of it, and it's not working, and you still feel that the child's anxiety is very high, or the child is extremely hyperactive or very aggressive, I would say medicine should be the last kind of solution. But before that, please try these other kind of therapies to see if they work, because why would you want to put in unnecessary chemicals into your child's body if it's not needed?
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with you. I completely agree. One last thing before we wrap this up today. So, we spoke about labeling, we spoke about neurodiversity and acceptance and medication and diets. Um, One thing which probably is not being spoken about a lot is abuse um to
Yes.
our kids who are on the spectrum. And recently, very sadly, I think a couple of days ago, I read about a therapist who slapped a child in the session, and it was caught on the video camera, and the parents struggled to actually get evidence of the fact that this something like this happened in Gurugram in Delhi
Right.
NCR. um, what can be a way around this? What, as parents and as informed loving professionals, we need to be careful of, and what, as a new parent, should we be looking at when we are signing up for these therapies? um, what
Right.
is your opinion, Gopika, on
So
this?
I think abuse is really scary. Whether it is physical abuse or sexual abuse, it is something which our kids are so much more susceptible to than neurotypical kids. The difference is that in a lot of cases, neurotypical children will be able to speak. A lot of kids on the spectrum cannot speak. The other thing is, very often, especially in the case of sexual abuse, parents, it's a term which is known as a prison of protection. So in trying to protect them, what they do is they kind of trap them in this prison, where they are not taught a lot of things. I was just talking to a patient this evening, to patients' parents, and we were talking about how to prepare this young child for puberty. And we were talking about how the first things that you need to learn are privacy and safety. And these are the very clear things. What is private for you and for others, and what is safe and what is not. And these are very clear, concrete lessons which every child needs to learn. In the case of kids on the spectrum, they can be taught these lessons, they just have to be taught differently. Okay, they can be taught visually, they can be taught using visuals, they can be taught using signs, whatever makes sense to that child, so that the child knows that if there is something which is happening to me, or which I am experiencing, which is not quite right, and believe me, these kids will know that there is something which is wrong. This is what I have to do, whether it is a card, whether it is something signaling or signing, something which they can be taught to kind of indicate that there is something up. In terms of therapies, or for parents, what should they do? For me, the big red flags are when a therapist takes a child into a room where a parent cannot observe a session. Okay, that is something which is, for
I
me,
myself
immediately
don't
my antenna.
understand. I
Yeah.
don't understand that concept. That pair not allowed. I was
Yeah, not
aghast
allowed.
because I meet a lot of new therapists, because we are a growing organization. We
Right.
hire a lot of people, so I get to know about therapists not allowing parents inside. Then how
Yes.
do you do therapy? What do
Yes.
what do you do with I mean, it's beyond my understanding
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. So I remember that, when we started, when to meet the parent was always part of the session. Not only part of the session, a part of the session was spent teaching the parent what the therapist is doing. So the therapist would tell the parent, you know what, I'm doing this, please observe what I'm doing, because I want you to do it at home. If How do you expect therapy to carry forward and become a 24/7 thing if the parent doesn't observe what the therapist is doing? In cases where the parent was too much of a distraction, they would sit in an observation room where there was a one-way glass. So while the child doesn't see the parent, at least the parent can see the child. Okay, that is the next acceptable thing. Okay, fine, maybe the therapist wants to work with your child without kind of the distraction of the parent. They feel the parent is not which I don't agree with, but okay, fine, some therapists have that, but the parent has to be able to view what is going on inside the room. In cases where the therapist says, you wait outside, I will work with your child, that is when my antenna goes up. Because if there is a therapist who does not want to show you what they are doing, then clearly that therapist does not know what they are doing. I don't think, even for a junior therapist, a trainee therapist, yes, of course, maybe they'll make mistakes along the way, but they're not going to harm your child, right? And so I think for parents, that is the main thing. If you cannot see what your child is doing, please don't take your child to that therapy center. There will be enough other therapy centers where you can go and work with your child, or you can do teletherapy, or you can work with your child yourself. But do not take your child to a therapy center where you are kept outside and your child is inside, because you really don't know what is happening inside. And in, like I said, with a lot of kids on the spectrum, they will not be able to tell you what is happening inside the therapy center, I mean, inside the room as well. And that for me is rings a lot of alarm bells. So that I think would be a rule of thumb, that they have to be able to see what's going on inside.
Absolutely. And I also would like to tell parents, if you're watching us, maybe a replay, please be informed about the qualifications of your therapist. It is very
Yes.
important to see whether they are registered and with the RCI, that is the Rehabilitation Council of India, and if they have a valid license to work, and whether they have a basic degree like either a bachelor's or a master's in whatever field,
Right.
whether it's an occupational therapist or a speech language therapist or a psychologist, a special ed, an ABA professional, whoever. So please make sure that you are well informed about the qualifications as well. Okay, so I think this has been a wonderful chat with you, Gopika. Thank you so much for taking out time, and I loved every part of this conversation with you today. Any last
So did
messages
I.
that you want to, any last message that you want to give through this chat?
I think one message that I would tell parents is to please read Beyond the Blue. I think it would help a lot in understanding, not just parents of children with autism, any parents, because I think it really helps to raise, to give you an understanding of what autism is. And I think um, if you can meet we are going to meet people with autism in our lives. They're going to be everywhere. But if you can, and I think they have so far they've been viewed with a lot of suspicion, sometimes with fear. These are wonderful people. They need to be part of society. They need to be able to participate. They need to be able to really live happy, independent lives as part of the society and the community that we all live in. And they have a right to do that. And if this book can help you in some way understand what autism is about, and really view people with autism with a lot more acceptance, I think I will have achieved my purpose. The book is hopefully going to be out in Hindi very soon. It has been translated, it's being checked, and I really want it to be out in Hindi because I think that it will be able to reach an audience that is not just an English speaking reading audience, but one that really can access the book and read it. And I hope that really happens.
That's wonderful to know. I'm sure your contribution via the book should and will be reached to the correct people. Thank you so much once again, Gopika. It
Thank you.
was a
Thank you so
wonderful
much. I'm glad
time.
we could do
Thank you.
this.
Thank you, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Gopika. And we hope to get more people like Gopika to, focus on other important issues and help you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a good evening,
Thank you.
everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.